Okay, so happy Thursday, everyone. Like I said earlier, thank you guys for being flexible. For those of you, y'all are my true ride or dies, because y'all be like, oh, I'll hop on even if it's on a Thursday. So I appreciate you. But had a little flip in my schedule. Long story short, I haven't even talked about it yet, but went to go pick up a new car in Memphis, Tennessee. Used to live in Memphis, Tennessee. It just so happened to be the same week that my husband needed to go work in Tennessee because his home office of the company that he works for is headquartered in Tennessee. So we were there for the first couple of days. So last week we had the incident with my mom, which required me to push the call to Thursday. And this week we ended up having just a change of schedule with needing to be out of town. So I appreciate you guys for your flexibility and being willing to hop on whatever day we do team call. So this week, I'm going to kind of piggyback off of what I was talking about last week, which is these secrets that highly successful people have regarding time management. And so even if you didn't hop on last week's call, this will still benefit you because I'm just picking up and talking about some new strategies. I'm not going to be talking about the old ones. The only one, I don't know that I did, Raquel. I don't know that I did do a recording from last week, but I'll look and see. I'll look and see. But we did end last week. We talked about 5 things. I'm not going to go over those. But the fifth one that we talked about before, no, the fourth one, I think we talked about 4, is they talked about procrastination and how most people procrastinate, and they're procrastinating not because they're lazy. A lot of times people think, oh, I must be lazy. I procrastinate. I wait till last minute to do everything. But it's really because we either lack enough motivation or we underestimate the power of our present emotions versus our future emotions. So essentially all it's saying is your future self can't be trusted. So how many of you say, oh, I'm going to start, being more consistent with doing my morning walk next week or after Memorial Day? How many of us do that? I mean, I'm constantly putting stuff off thinking, oh, my future self is going to be more motivated, but you can't really trust your future self. Okay. So that's really the whole point of that 4th rule. Okay. They beat procrastination. So highly successful people beat procrastination. So I'm going to go ahead and get started with number 5. Okay. Number 5 is that highly successful people, they really do understand and they've mastered and grasped this concept that there's always going to be more. Okay. And what I mean by that is they know how to leave their work at work because they know there's always going to be more to do. Okay. When you are in this type of business, and I am preaching to the choir right now, y'all, because guess what? I kind of am a workaholic. I really enjoy working. I really love pouring into people. I really, really, really love what I do. And so I have to consistently tell myself on a regular basis, Robin, it's time to put it down. It's time to put it down. That's the reason why I have very, very tight boundaries around my weekend. If you are an individual that messages me on the weekend, you probably know I will not message you back minimum until Monday. Okay. Because I had to start creating better boundaries. Otherwise, in a business like this, when you are a business owner, some of you, you're business owners outside of Plexus, that when you're an entrepreneur, it's very, very easy to get sucked in and nothing to ever end. Okay. Especially when you enjoy what you do. And so this particular author gave this example of George W. Bush back in the day when he was in office. They had a politician by the name of Karl Rove who interviewed George W. Bush. And he basically concluded and found out that George W. Bush reads 95 books a year. Crazy, because that's almost 2 books a week, y'all. And so when I first read it, I was like, wow, okay, so that means that like the leader of the free world, someone who should be busier than all of us, right, combined with all the things that you have to do as the president of the United States, how could someone ever find the time, to read 2 books a week almost on average? 95 books a year is about 2 books a week, just shy of that. And one of the things that they talked about, and then he gave it a couple other examples. He said that the CEO, or who used to be the CEO of Campbell Soup, that he would send out 20 handwritten notes every single day. He would sit down, write, not his assistant. He would sit down and personally write 20 handwritten notes. And so as I was looking at this and reading this, I was like, wow, like I'm just regular old Robin. I do have a pretty decent sized business, but I mean, by no stretch of the imagination, I'm the CEO of a Campbell Soup. By no stretch of the imagination, I'm even close to being a president. And I struggle with writing one handwritten note a day. I struggle with reading 2 books, sometimes 2 books every 3 months, right? I have this goal always of reading 1 book a month. So getting 12 books a year. And that's kind of like a goal for me. So when I'm thinking about 95 books a year, I'm like, wow, I'm a slacker. This is a problem. And so what they talked about as to why these highly successful people actually make time and do these things on a consistent basis is because they have really grasped the understanding of high output management. All that really means is there's always going to be more to do and always more to be done. And so because they've grasped that understanding, they know, hey, I know that if I consistently every single day am constantly focused on all there is that needs to be done, I'm never going to do anything else. And everybody feel me on that? So they made a decision that, hey, I'm not going to burn out. I'm not going to burn myself out. I'm going to have a hard stop every day. And guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to prioritize the things that are going to recharge and refuel me. For the Campbell Soup CEO, it happened to be writing out those handwritten notes. Okay. That gave him some sort of satisfaction, gratification. It obviously benefited him in his business, probably in his relationships personally. There's probably many benefits of him doing that, but it was something that he enjoyed doing. And for George W. Bush, he knew that learning and recharging were valuable tasks. And so he wasn't going to let something get in the way of that. And he wasn't going to allow certain things to become so urgent that he didn't do that. And so I took it as a really, really great lesson, right? Because there are so many times that I will put off, oh, well, maybe today I won't do my devotional today, or maybe today I won't read that next chapter. Maybe today I won't listen to that podcast, or maybe today I won't go on that walk. There's so many different things that I know I have put off over the years. And so it just helped me to get really convicted about being more intentional about things that should be non-negotiable. So I want you guys to comment in the chat some things that no matter what, should be non-negotiables, that today you're saying, you know what, I'm truly going to make it a non-negotiable after listening to these examples. Now, the other thing that they talked about with this particular rule or this particular strategy of basically they make it home for dinner. They're always like, look, at 5 o'clock, my day ends, or whatever day it is, or whatever time it is for them. 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, my day is ending no matter what. One of the things that they said was, if something is really important to you, you will find a way to fit it into your life. How many of you believe that? I absolutely do. And that's the reason why when a lot of people say to me, oh, well, nobody in my network can afford these products. The products are too expensive. Y'all, expensive is relative. It's relative. Because the same individuals that I see many times that moan and groan about not being able to afford putting something into their body that will help them get healthy from the inside out, that will help them to get off of tons of prescription meds, help them to increase their longevity. Those are the same individuals that I see many times that as soon as there's a big sale where they can go get the cutest handbag, for 50% off, they find a way to get it. Or if there's a concert that they need to go to, they're going to find a way to get some tickets to that concert. They're going to find a way to get their hair done. They're going to find a way to get a brand new outfit. Y'all know what I'm talking about. We've all been guilty of it, right? But then we act like we don't have the money and the resources to invest in our own personal health or to invest in our business. And so I just really want to encourage you to really think about what is truly important to you, and don't be that example, right? If you want to attract people to your business that aren't coming up with a ton of excuses as to why they can't order their product, or why they can't start the products to begin with, or why they can't build a business, then don't be an example of that yourself. You know what I mean? So just be considering that. Okay. You also have to learn the art of letting go of more. Okay. This is what they talked about specifically in this with this particular strategy or secret. It's just letting go of more, because there's always going to be more to do. Okay. Now, the next one is number 6. Number 6 time management rule is, excuse me, it comes from Richard Branson. I don't know if y'all know who Richard Branson is. I call him Sir Richard Branson, but he's one of the most successful entrepreneurs. He's worth $4.8 billion, and he's the founder of the Virgin Group, Virgin Airlines, Virgin, music, all the things. Okay. He has over 400 businesses, like just a serial entrepreneur. And one of the things that he said was one of his secret productivity tools was that he uses a notebook. Okay. He uses it. He's like, everywhere he goes, he has a notebook with him. I have a notebook with me everywhere I go. It's this is a leather notebook, but I've had many notebooks over the years, moleskin notebooks, tons and tons of journals. And he said, when you capture everything in your notebook, what happens is your mind can stay carefree. Okay. And the reason why your mind can stay carefree is because how many of you all throughout your day, you hear things, you're listening to things, you have all this input of information into your brain, and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm overloaded with information, and you get so overwhelmed, you literally just like you shut down, you freeze. Anybody feel that way sometimes? Whether it's through your daily work and your plexus work, dealing with, anything that you do in ministry, dealing with all your kids and all their activities, all the things they have coming at you. There's so many different things coming at us. And because we live in such a digital world, we now have 24 hours a day. We have constant input. It's constantly something that we're being fed information, right? Which we'll talk about that in a little bit too. So the reason why he's saying this is absolutely crucial for your own, not only your success, but your mental health, is having a notebook. So anytime you hear something, see something, you can write it down. You can write it down and you can have it recorded. That means you don't have to take up brain space to remember it. You don't have to think about and be mulling over, okay, what did that person say their name was? Like, so literally he says, if I meet somebody, I write down their name. And I write down what our conversation was like. I mean, so this is stuff that he doesn't now have to remember. Do y'all understand how that can start to free your mind up? So he's like, okay, I meet somebody at, the grocery store or at a meeting or at church or Bible study, or whatever. He's writing down the name, but he's not just writing down the name. He's writing down what their interaction was like. He's writing down, the context of the conversation, all those things, because that's going to be a memory jogger when he goes back to it. And so it does really free up your mind to not have to collect all this information, because how many of you feel completely overwhelmed half the time with all the things that you have to remember? And some of you are probably not huge note takers. I mean, not note takers, list makers. Okay. And we already talked about kind of the downside of making lists, right? We talked about that last week. It's like, don't make a list. You want to be the person that actually puts everything on a schedule. Okay. That was last week's call. I really got to find that, Raquel. I got to see if I recorded that. And so the other piece of advice that was given was not just from Richard Branson, but one of them is like this tried and true network marketing guru. His name was Jim Rohn. He has tons of amazing quotes. Just look up Jim Rohn, do a little bit of research on him. He has lots of really great, he was super old tools back in the 70s, but he has tons of really great tapes, audio recordings of him speaking, just really, really good. And he said there are 3 treasures that he has. Okay. I thought these were really, really good. He said the first treasure is your pictures. Okay. The first treasure is your pictures. He said, take a lot of pictures. And this was just kind of his secret to success. He said the second treasure is your library. Okay. He said you having kept all of your books over the years, it's really going to help you to defend your ideas. And so he was a big proponent of not just having a book and reading it, but having a book and scribing in it, having a book and highlighting it, having a book and notating in it. All of those things is really helpful. And it's really, honestly, he talked about how it's been beneficial in his success. John Maxwell talks about it all the time. He has like a note-taking system, and he has like a file system. So what John Maxwell does is he'll read a book, okay? He'll read a book and he highlights it, okay? And then what he does is he will take those notes or those highlights and he types it up, and John Maxwell now probably has his assistant type these things up, types it up, and then he'll file quotes. So if you ever read a John Maxwell book, how many times does he reference somebody else's stuff? Like, John Maxwell has a lot of original thoughts, but he also grabs a lot of stuff from other people. Have y'all ever noticed that? He has a story for everything. He's got an example for everything. And that's what makes his writing so relatable. And that's also the reason why he can write several hundred books and them all be bestsellers, is because he's always gleaning this applicable information. Well, the reason why he's been able to glean all this applicable information that makes it kind of come alive in his book is because he stores and files all these things that he reads. Okay. So he has a filing system. So this is kind of in the same vein what Jim Rohn is talking about. Yep, that's right, Raquel. He's storing. And so the second treasure is his library. And he said the third treasure are his journals. He said the ideas that you picked up, the information that you meticulously gathered. But of these three, he thinks journal writing is one of the greatest indications that you're a serious student. And so there's a theme here, y'all, right? The theme is that if you want to be highly successful in life, right? And it's not just about how much money you earn and how far you go in life and how far you go in this business. This is just you having a well-rounded, well-intentioned life. If you want to be a highly successful person, to me, what I'm gathering is that it's all about you pushing yourself to continue to grow, right? Because he wouldn't say, this is what makes you a serious student if being a serious student wasn't a secret to success. Being a serious student is a secret to success. So that is number 6, is that they use a notebook. You want to capture everything in your notebook so your mind can stay carefree. This is so important. Okay. Now, the 7th secret, and this is a big one, y'all. This is something I really, really struggle with. Oh, I want to read one last quote to you about keeping a journal, a notebook. I don't know who said this, Honore Porter. He's an author, speaker, don't really know who he is, but I love this quote. It says, I highly recommend keeping a journal because a life worth living is a life worth recording. Isn't that beautiful, y'all? A life worth living is a life worth recording. This is going to sound really morbid, but I have kept journals and have kept quote books and have kept Bible study journals, devotional journals for literally years. I have like volumes of them. And when I was a kid and I started doing this, I mean, I was just kind of a weird kid. So I would think about, oh, wow, like I can pass these down to my kids one day. And not that they'll ever read it, they may or may not, I don't know. But at least they'll have some sort of record of my life. And so I always thought that was something when I would see movies and stuff, and maybe I was just kind of a weird kid that when I saw that in a movie, I thought it would be beneficial, like for my future children. But I think that there's something to this. There's something to a life worth living is a life worth recording. So number 7, I hope so, Angie. I don't know though, my kids, Okay, so the next one is 7, okay? And this is the one I was saying I really, really, really struggle with. And it is that highly successful people only check their email 3 times a day. Okay, so let me first admit to you, this is probably the one that I struggle with the most as I look at my phone and as I have 33,902 unopened emails. Okay, struggle bus, legit. Okay, 33,908 unopened emails. Okay, and I do check one of my accounts every single day, multiple times a day. I really, really do. Okay, and I still have 33,908 unopened emails. And so one of the things that they talked about, Kathy's like, I'm in the same boat. One of the things that they talked about with highly successful people only checking email 3 times a day is because they said they don't let social media or email interrupt their flow, right? They don't let it, they schedule times to read and respond to email. This is something that I think we all could probably get better at. Only because, again, because of the type of world we're living in where it's constant input. Like before we had smartphones, even before we had email, guys, it was like you would go to physical work and you would see what was like on your plate for that day because someone would physically tell you, but it wasn't like, because even if you don't work from home, you still have email that you, most of the time, if you work for any employer, you have the ability to go back and look at that even if you're not at work, right? Most of the time you have the ability to do that, especially because of COVID and people working remotely. And so this is why it's such a time sucker. And this is the reason why it decreases productivity levels for so many people, is because guess what it feeds? It feeds my crazy brain that feels like I've done something productive when I cannot see those blue dots anymore. Like if I can get the number from 33,908 to go down to 33,550, I feel like I've done something. But guess what? It's like a never ending cycle, because how many times do you get at least 3 to 4 to 5 batches of new emails all throughout the day? You know what I mean? Like, so you started your day and you had maybe 55 new emails when you opened up your inbox. And y'all, it's because I like steals and deals, right? I subscribe to every doggone thing. At Sears, I don't even go to Sears. I don't even have a Big Lots near me anymore. I mean, I literally have emails for everything under the sun. And because I'm crazy, I feel like, oh, I don't want to miss out, so I have all these things and so I've got to unsubscribe to this stuff. So I'm going to give you a couple tips that they're talking about. But a lot of us do what I do, this addiction to having a ton of emails in your inbox and feeling like you need to look at them all, because you don't want to miss out on something, or you feel like, oh, I may miss out on something important. But there is one thing that I learned from this that I did while I was reading this a couple months ago, and it was called Unroll Me. It's www.unroll.me. And it lets you easily unsubscribe to a lot of emails. It's www.unroll.me. Okay. So that's a cool website you can go to kind of get that ball rolling. Okay. And then you can just commit to what I did before I did the Unroll Me, is I just started committing to every day when I'm going through my email, I would hit, how sometimes it's harder to hit unsubscribe. Sometimes you have to scroll all the way down to the end of the email to unsubscribe, and then they make you go through all these hoops to unsubscribe. Some of the things are easier where it literally says at the top of your email, unsubscribe. Whenever I see that, I just click unsubscribe. Okay. So I've started getting better at committing to every day 10 to 20 new emails that I get, I click unsubscribe to. So that's helping the process as well. But this guy's secret to productivity and secret to time management is that he only checks his email 3 times a day, and he does a 3-2-1-0 system. Okay. So the 3-2-1-0 system is this. He schedules 3 times a day to process email. So he'll do it in the morning, he does it at noon, and he does it at night. Okay, where he checks his email only 3 times. He only allows himself to check email 3 times a day. Okay, he sets a timer on his phone for 21 minutes. So that's where the 2-1 comes from. So it's 3 times a day. 21 minutes is how much time he's giving himself to go through his email. And he tries to get to 0 in his inbox in that time, in those 21 minutes. Okay. Well, clearly that's a problem that I have because I'm at 33. That's I'll never be to 0. Okay. You know what I mean? So that's my issue. But if you are a cleaned up person like Ebony and you're like, hey, I don't have any emails in my inbox because I'm super type A and I've got my crap together and nobody else does, then you can do this, Ebony. You can do this 3-2-1 system. Okay. Maybe you don't need a system because that's why you're a 0, right? So you spend 21 minutes, you give yourself 21 minutes. So it's almost like so he physically sets a timer on his phone, and it's like, once he's done, like he's done, like he has to walk away. He won't keep going. And so it does kind of keep him on his P's and Q's because he wants to get to 0 on his inbox. Okay. And then he has some more specific things that he does. I'm not going to go over all that tonight, but one of the things that he talks about specifically is creating an effective work routine is choosing what you want it to be rather than letting others dictate it for you. And I think this is a big problem that a lot of us have. We let other people dictate what our day is going to look like. If you start your day looking at email, so he said he looks at his email morning, noon, and night, but that doesn't mean you need to be opening up your phone and looking at your email first thing in the morning. Do y'all see how that can go down a bad path if you get in I've been in the habit of doing that. Like, because I don't physically work outside the home anymore, I'll wake up sometimes, well, I just want to sit in bed for about 15 minutes. I'm like, but I don't want to be unproductive just sitting there. So I'll start checking email. You know, does everybody do that? You're like, I don't want to get out of bed, but okay. I'm so glad I'm not alone because I feel like I have so many issues in life. So I'll look at my email and I'll feel like, oh, I'm productive even though I'm still sitting in bed because I'm checking email. But guess what I'm doing though when I do that? I'm letting other people dictate what my day is going to look like, because inevitably I'm going to get an email that I feel like whoever it is, or based on what the subject is, or what's going on, that it needs my attention immediately. And dare I say, sometimes I even check emails that is not begging for my attention, but maybe is begging for my pocketbook. Like, oh my gosh, Dillard's has a sale. It's 50% off this weekend. And so now I've got to schedule that into my doggone weekend. You know what I mean? So it's just so many different things. You can go down these rabbit holes when you're allowing email and things of that nature to dictate your schedule. Okay. And guys, some of us, I know I'm talking tonight and I'm saying things that maybe you already know or you've already thought of, but I really think this is beneficial because it's always good to be convicted by reminders. Because for me, I need consistent reminders about how I can allow things to not suck up my day, suck up my time, and for me to then feel exhausted, like I've done so much, but really not done much at all. Okay. And this is a struggle that you can have consistently as an entrepreneur. It's a struggle that you can consistently have as a person who may work from home full time. And a lot of us do, just because of, our current world. Okay. Now, the other thing I wanted to share with you, let me see, do I want to go to the next one? Do I want to talk about the next one? Yes, I do. Okay. So the next one is, this is interesting, is that they say no to almost everything. Okay. Highly successful people say no to almost everything. And I absolutely agree. Okay. They said that word no is the one word that multiplies success. How many of you believe that? I just want somebody that's really thinking about this. I'm going to pause for a minute, but I want anybody to unmute and popcorn out why they think this is true. Why do they think that one little word, no, multiplies success? Anybody want to share?
Robin.
Uh-huh.
Robin, this is Cheryl.
Hey,
Can you hear me? Okay. Hi, everybody. I think that's very important because you have to set boundaries. You have to set boundaries is what I'm thinking. And if not, you're going to be pulled in so many different directions. And I feel when that starts to happen, you're not accomplishing anything.
Absolutely. One of the things, thank you for sharing that, Cheryl. It is absolutely 100% about boundaries. Okay. And more than anything, it really does help to focus you on keeping the main thing the main thing. And so this author gave one of the best examples, and I'm going to break it down for you just a little bit. He said that small things turn into big things when they actually arrive. Okay. And this is the example that he gave about how small things turn into big things. So he said that, there was somebody, this guy's an author, but he obviously also speaks and does speaking engagements and things of that nature. And so he said that there was like a college student that had asked him to speak on their college campus about XYZ, whatever. Okay. And it was like 3 or 4 weeks out. So his schedule wasn't full at the time. And he said, he typically charges $12,500 to about $22,000 for speaking engagements. But because this was a college student, and it was for university or whatever, and for educational purposes, he was like, okay, every month he always tries to do one pro bono projects. It's like one free project, just something to give back or whatever, which is great, right? So he decided to say yes to this. And that was his first yes. Okay. But then once he said yes to that, and then the student, started sharing that this guy, Kevin, was going to be coming and speaking at in their class or their function or whatever, then that kind of opened up this can of worms that now other people on campus are like, well, hey, if you're going to be on campus, you're going to be doing this. Will you do this? Will you, submit this? Will you do, you see, and this happens all the time. Does this not happen all the time for us in church, volunteer organizations, work, all the things? One small yes turns into 4 or 5 yeses. Okay. So his whole point was not that he regretted, because ultimately he said he ended up saying 5 yeses to this one project. Okay. So the one university supposed to be pro bono work that he was doing turned into 5 different yeses. Right. And then once it got closer to the time that he had to speak, guess what? Other people were vying for his time and attention as well. Except in this case, there were people about 2 weeks or 1 week out that were asking him about speaking engagements that they were planning to pay him for. So now he starts losing money on these engagements, but he's a person of his word. So he didn't back out. He kept his commitment. He followed through. He did all the things. But what he was saying was that he said that this was really an extreme example of how we mistakenly think we'll be less busy in the future than we are in the present. Okay. And so many of us say yes to everything. And there's lots of reasons why we say yes. We'll talk about that in a minute, but there's lots of reasons why it's hard for us to say no. And I'm going to break that down in just a second. But one thing that he said that really resonated with me personally, and it's something that I have to teach my kids about all the time, is that every yes is a no to something else. So, like, for instance, last week was the end of the school year for my kiddos, and my daughter had a party that she had been invited to. And I was kind of like, you really want to go to this party? Because it was kind of not like a legitimate party. It was just something that this girl was given to her information word of mouth to come over to her house. And I was like, and in my mind, I was thinking there's going to be some other, end of the year parties that I know this chick is going to get. My chick is my 11-year-old daughter, my 12-year-old daughter, that she's going to get invited to. And she said yes to that at first. Okay. She said yes to this kind of bootleg party that she got invited to. And then in my mind, I was like, inevitably, she's going to get invited to another end of the year party. And she did. And so that other party, she had already said yes to the first kind of bootleg one, which she didn't get a formal invitation for, but the girl just word of mouth invited her. And then the other one, here we get this elaborate invitation and all the things, and it's going to be at the cool girl's house. And so she said she wanted to say yes to both. I was like, well, every yes is a no to something else, right? You said yes to this, you've already committed to this. So you have to be very, how do I say this, discerning about the yeses that you actually give. Does that make sense? So it doesn't mean that you want that you're trying to leave anybody out, or that, it's not about that. It's just about you knowing that your time is valuable. I mean, this is a 12-year-old we're talking about. But we're relating this to us as adults, that our time actually is super valuable. Not that hers isn't, but y'all know what I mean. It's the difference between a 12-year-old and a 45-year-old, right? Especially when we have so many other competing priorities. And so remembering that every yes is a no to something else. Okay. Now, he kind of breaks down why it's really hard to say no. And I really want you guys to comment below in the comment section if you relate to any of these. Okay. He said that many of the reasons is that, one, we're afraid to make people mad. Like we don't want to upset people by saying no, right? We're afraid to hurt people's feelings. We don't want to hurt people, making people think we don't want to hang, like in the case of my daughter, that she didn't want to hang out with the girls. Not that she didn't want to hang out with the girls, just that she really needed to be more discerning about which yes she was going to give, right? Because there's only so many hours a day, there's only so many that she can go to. Another one is that we want to be liked. Okay, how many of us we want people to like us? So we want to say yes to everything because we think that that's contingent on someone approving of us, right? Another one is that we don't want to be rude, right? We're raised to be polite. And so we feel like inevitably we feel like saying no a lot of times is kind of being rude, and it's not. Oh yeah, total approval addiction, Rachel. That's a great way to put it. Um, and approval being an idol. That's the term that I use a lot of times. Like we have a being accepted and being approved by others, it becomes an idol for a lot of us. Okay. Another one is that we underestimate how much time something will really take. So we say yes to a lot of stuff because in the moment it feels just like he was saying yes to this say going and speaking at the school for the student. But so he underestimated what that could possibly, so not really taking the time to think about what something can turn into. So knowing that, hey, if I'm going to go do this pro bono work or this volunteer work, and knowing, guys, y'all, when you start volunteering for stuff and you're not charging people for things, I know this sounds harsh, but people will suck you dry. I mean, people will literally suck you dry. If you are volunteering for everything, saying yes to everything, I mean, you start to walk around with like something on your forehead that says, you're going to say yes to everything. Ask XYZ person because they're never going to say no. I mean, it's true. Okay. We also aren't clear on our own priorities. Okay. If you get really tunnel vision and super crystal clear and laser focused on what your priorities are, what your goals are, and where you want to go and what time frame you want to get there, you will start to get really, really discerning about who you're saying yes to, how many times you're saying yes. Okay. Also, we feel good about ourselves when we say yes because we feel like we're being helpful. I mean, it's just the way it is. I mean, we start, oh, let's say yes to them, and it makes us feel good. Okay. And then finally, one of the last reasons why it's hard for us to say no is we like earning this is kind of selfish, but it's true. We like earning future return favors. Okay. We like earning future return favors. How many of you in the back of your mind, even though it may be in your subconscious mind, you say yes to things because you're like, yeah, I probably don't need them to do something for me. So I'm going to say yes now so I can get a future yes later. Right. So it's kind of selfish and it's in at the core, but you know, we try to justify it and pretty it up and say all the things, but in the back of our mind, it has crossed our mind, even if it's subconscious, that this is somebody that you may need in your back pocket in the future. And so you say yes because you want to make sure that you have that future yes in return. Okay. And so ultimately, uncontrolled saying yes to requests for time will quickly block out all the other things we value, including the very things that made us successful in the first place, right? And so we are self-imposing the pressure and the feelings of guilt when we say no. Okay. That's on us. That's not on anybody else. That's on us. We're self-imposing this pressure and these feelings of guilt when we say no. That's on us. Okay. Because at the end of the day, y'all, if you have a friend, quote unquote, or you have an associate, quote unquote, that is mad at you for saying no, are they really your friend to begin with? They're not. I mean, life is too short, y'all. Life is too short. And so if I'm going to get, excuse my French, but if I'm going to get my panties in a wad because someone says no to me about, you know, anything really, that's on me, right? That's on me and that's not on them. And that's their issue. Okay. So, let's see. I'm going to end with this because we're running out of time and then we'll pick back up another week. But one of the things that he gave some really great examples for, and if I have some time in the next week or so, I'll type up some of these kind of headers or things that he says that really help him to say no and kind of move on. Is he had 7 easy ways to say no. And one of the examples, I'll just give you one right now, but he gave like 7 or 8. He said, but I'm wanted. So if the person asks for a request to do whatever, right, to anything, he says, but I'm on a deadline right now and I'm not taking any new meetings until I'm done. Guys, I say that a lot. I mean, a lot. I say I have a lot of people that are not on my team that constantly are asking me to do calls for them, to do videos, to do, I mean, all the things. Okay. And then corporate is a whole nother beast. And so I have to set boundaries around my yeses and my nos. And one of the things that I specifically do is I only do one, kind of what this guy was talking about. I only do like one outside of my own team. I only do one call like that a month. So if you want to get on my schedule, you're going to contact me in enough time. And it's sad because like I have a friend of mine who's in Plexus, who's another diamond, and they ask me almost every month, like, can I do, a call for their team? And I'd be willing to say yes, but they always ask me so last minute that someone's already taken up my one spot for the month. Does that make sense? So at some point they'll learn. I mean, or they'll just give up, and somebody I really love. I mean, I really like these people on this team, but I just have to set those hard boundaries. And so you just have to set some hard boundaries around whatever thing in your life you feel like, has a potential to suck you dry. You have to be willing to find a way to say no. So with that being said, we will stop right there. There's several other things about time management that I want to share with you from this particular author that we'll get to probably not this coming week, because this coming week is the first, this next week we'll have to do our gut health product training. So we'll kind of go through our same routine that we normally do, but I'll pick this back up at some point in June. So with that being said, I am super excited again about seeing so many of you at convention in June. You will not regret the sacrifice of being away from your family for a couple of days, the resources that it takes to travel there, even though that's totally a write-off for you guys and for all of us. But you will not regret this, because it's going to be one of the best conventions ever. I'm super excited about seeing all of our Ohio friends and Ohio teammates in their stomping ground. And number five is that they have boundaries around their start and end time. So basically they make it home for dinner. Okay. There's always more. Basically, there's always more to be done. And so they time block their priorities and end their day guilt-free. That's number 5. That was the first one we talked about today. I just want to make sure you're all clear. We started with number 5 today. Okay. The other one that I said is they beat procrastination. That was from last week. That was just kind of a recap from last week. I was just picking back up. Okay. So we started today with number 5. But anyway, super excited about seeing you guys. If you have not already looked at the post in Leading with Excellence about our team dinner, I would love for you guys to make it to our team dinner. That's the one free night that all of us have, is Thursday night. And we've got, a big room reserved for us. It's going to be a fun time. It's really honestly needed. We've been over 2 years, almost 3 years, that so many of us have not seen each other. So many of us have not ever met each other, but have been meeting through Zoom week after week, month after month for the past several years. So try to make it a point to make it to that dinner. And you guys have a great rest of your night. Enjoy your Memorial Day weekend. And y'all, please stay safe. Love you guys. And I appreciate you all again for your flexibility. Okay.
Thank
Bye,
you,
guys.
Robin.
Thank you, everybody.
Robin.
This was
Night.
great, Robin.
Good
Thanks so
Robin.
much.
Bye,
Good
y'all.
night.
Y'all be
Love
safe.
you.
Good night, everybody.
Bye, guys.
Thanks, Robin.
Thank
Good
you.
night. Good night.